Chapter 5 of The Stars Beneath Our Feet. Who is the dark-haired one? Do you really think anyone will come? Ellen asked nervously, turning to Anne-Marie in the bedroom. Your father doesn't think so. Of course not. They're always threatening stuff. They just like to scare people. Anyway, if they did, it would give me a chance to practice acting. I'd just pretend to be Lise. I wish we were taller, though. Ellen stood on tiptoes, trying to make herself tall. She laughed at herself, and her voice was more relaxed. You were great as the Dark Queen in the school play last year, Anne-Marie said. You should be an actress when you grow up. My father wants me to be a teacher. He wants everyone to be a teacher just like him. But maybe I could convince him to let me go to acting school. Ellen stood on tiptoe again and made an imperious gesture with her arms. I am the Dark Queen, she said dramatically. I have come to command the night. You should try saying, I am Lise Johansson, Anne-Marie said, grinning. If you told the Nazis that you were the Dark Queen, they'd haul you off. They would think you were in need of a mental institution. Ellen dropped to actress pose and sat down. They don't really come, do you think so? She asked again. Not in a million years, and she picked up her hairbrush. The girls found themselves whispering as they got ready for bed. There was no need to whisper, really. After all, they were supposed to be normal sisters. But the night did seem somehow different. How did your sister die, Anne-Marie? Ellen asked. I remember when it happened, and I remember the funeral. It was the only time I've ever been in a Lutheran church, but I never knew what happened. I don't really know exactly either, Anne-Marie confessed. She and Peter were out somewhere together, and then we got this terrible phone call that there'd been an accident. Mama and Papa rushed to the hospital. That much I remember. I remember because your mom came and stayed with me and Kirsty. Kirsty was still asleep, and she slept through everything that night. But I stayed up. I sat with your mother in the living room when my parents came home in the middle of the night. That's when they told me she was dead. I remember it was raining, Ellen said sadly. It was still raining the next morning when Mama told me. My mama was crying. Anne-Marie finished brushing her long hair and handed the brush to her best friend. Ellen undid her braids, lifted her dark hair away from the thin gold chain she wore around her neck, which was the Star of David, and began to brush her thick curls. I think it was partly because of the rain. They said she was hit by a car. I suppose the streets were slippery. Papa looked angry, though. He made one hand into a fist and he kept pounding it. I remember the noise of it slamming and slamming and slamming. Together, they got into the wide bed and they pulled up the covers, and Anne-Marie blew out the candle. Do you see that blue trunk in the corner? Well, those are her things. Lots of Lisa's things are in there. Even her wedding dress. Mama and Papa never opened it, though. She would have been so beautiful in her wedding dress, said Ellen. I wanted to pretend that she was my sister, too. She would have liked that. She really loved you. Well, that's the worst thing in the world, to be dead so young, said Ellen. I don't want the Germans to take my family away, to make us live someplace else, but still, it wouldn't be as bad as being dead, right? Anne-Marie leaned over and she hugged her. They won't take you away, and not your parents either. Papa promised they'd be safe. And you're quite safe here. For a while they continued to murmur in the dark. Then Ellen's voice stopped. She turned over, and in a minute she was asleep. But Anne-Marie stared out the window. Dangers were no more than odd imaginings, like ghosts that children make up in their frightened little minds. Anne-Marie felt completely safe here in her home, with her parents in the next room, and a friend asleep beside her. She yawned contentedly and closed her eyes, but it was hours later when there was a pounding on their door. Anne-Marie eased from the bed and opened the bedroom door quietly. Behind her, Ellen was sitting there with her eyes wide. She could see Mama and Papa in their night clothes, but when they moved the candle, 3 German soldiers stood in their doorway. This is the Johansson apartment, a deep voice said. Well, yes, our name is on the door, Papa said. You have a flashlight. What do you want? Is something wrong? I understand you are friends with your neighbors, the Rosens. Well, Sophie Rosen is my friend. That's true, Mama said. Well then, can you be kind enough to tell me where the Rosen family is? Said the German soldier. Anne-Marie could hear the soldiers talking, and from her hiding place, she could also see the pistol in their holster on his waist and the uniform of the 3 German soldiers. Then another voice said, the Rosen apartment is empty. Well, said Papa, moving slightly so that he was standing in front of Anne-Marie's bedroom door. There's no one here but my family. Will you not object then, if we look around? Well, it seems like you're not really giving me a choice, said Papa. But please, don't wake my children, Mama said. There is no need to frighten the little ones. In their heavy-booted feet, they moved across the floor again, from one bedroom to the other. A closet door opened, and then it closed with a bang. Anne-Marie eased her bedroom door closed silently. She stumbled back through the darkness and whispered, Get off your necklace! Ellen, take off your necklace. Ellen's hands flew to her neck. Desperately, she tried to unhook the clasp. Outside, the footsteps were getting closer. I can't get it off, Ellen said frantically. It's never given me a problem before. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember how to open it. Here. Shh, Mom whispered to the soldiers. My daughters are asleep in this room. Hold still, Anne-Marie commanded. This will hurt. And she ripped the little chain off of Ellen's neck. She crumpled it into her hand, and she closed her fingers tightly. Terrified, they lay there as the 3 Nazi officers entered her room. One of the men aimed a flashlight at the bed. He went to the closet and looked inside. Then he swept his gloved hand. He pushed to the floor several coats and bathrobes. There was nothing in the room except a chest of drawers and the blue decorated trunk. Angrily, the officer turned to the bed. Come out here! Trembling, the 2 girls rose from the bed and followed him. Anne-Marie looked around. Yep, these were the men, uniformed men, but different from the ones on the corners. These men were older, and they were angry. Her parents were standing beside each other, their faces tense, but Kirsty was nowhere in sight. Thank goodness Kirsty managed to sleep on. If they had awakened her, she'd be crying. What are your names? Anne-Marie Johansson. And this is my sister. Quiet! Let her speak for herself. What is your name? Ellen swallowed. It's Lise Johansson. The officer stared at them. Now you have seen that we are not hiding, Mama said in a strong voice. My children need to go back to bed. The officer ignored her, and he suddenly grabbed a handful of Ellen's hair, and she winced. He laughed. You have a blonde child sleeping in the other room, and you have this blonde daughter. Where did that one get the dark hair from? Papa stepped forward. Don't speak to my wife in such a way. Let go of my daughter, or I will report you for such treatment. Or maybe you got her from the Rosens then, said the soldiers. For a moment no one spoke. Then Anne-Marie, watching in panic, saw her father move swiftly to the small bookcase and take out a book. He saw that he was holding the family album. Very quickly, he went through the pages until he found what he was looking for. He tore out 3 pictures from separate pages, and he handed them to the German soldiers, who then released Ellen's hair. You will see each of my daughters, each with her name written in the photograph. Anne-Marie knew instantly which photograph he had chosen. They were snapshots, but it also contained a portrait taken by a photographer of each girl as tiny infants. Mama had written in her delicate handwriting the name of each baby across the bottom of the photographs. She too realized with an icy feeling why Papa had torn them from the book. At the bottom of each page, below the photograph itself, was written the date the real Lise Johansson had been born 21 years ago. Kirsten Elizabeth, the author read, looking at Kirsty's baby picture. Anne-Marie, Lise Marguerite, he read. In her mind, Anne-Marie pictured the photograph he held. The baby, wide-eyed, propped against a pillow, her tiny hand holding a silver teething ring, her bare feet, and her wispy, dark curls. The officer tore the photograph in half and dropped it on the floor. Then he turned on his heels, his shiny boots grinding on the pictures. And then he left their apartment. Not even muttering a word, the two other officers followed. Popper stepped forward and closed the door behind him. Anne-Marie relaxed her clenching fingers of her right hand that still held Ellen's necklace. She looked down and she saw that she had the imprint of the Star of David in her palm.